Second meeting of the season between the Red Bulls and New England. This one will be up in the state of Massachusetts. Brad Feldman, the longtime voice of the Revs, gives us a couple minutes. Brad, appreciate you coming on, talking about this one. I want to start with the game that took place about a month ago. It was a 4-2 Red Bull win, but in a lot of ways, that was a weird game to me, remembering back on it. It was back and forth, back and forth. Both teams kind of scored early. Both teams kind of scored late. And New York on that day just had a little bit more punch than the Revs.
Yeah, I agree. I thought 4-2, I think Red Bulls were worthy winners, but 4-2 kind of flattered them. And the fact the Revs got late goals maybe made up for some of that. I think a lot of people who watch New England week in and week out, Matt, thought that was sort of representative of the way the season was going. It's like they played well and got nothing to show for it. Part of it is just the mojo in this series, right? Like, the visiting team almost never wins, especially since Red Bull Arena opened up, now 14 years ago. But in terms of this current iteration of New England, their goal scoring woes were on display. They don't defend poorly as a team, but there have been momentary lapses, either losing a mark or a giveaway in a very inopportune spot on the field. We saw that a few times. There was punished, at least once in that game by the Red Bulls, who get up in your shirts. They may not, as you know, quite as frenzied in their pressing as they were in earlier, recent seasons, but they still get up on you in the press. And the Revs didn't always deal with that because they want to play. And if you don't do that perfectly, there are going to be a couple times a game where it's coming right back down your throat. The Revs have improved since then. Even though they only, have the one recent win to show for it, they've won a couple times on the road now. They need to establish this home patch. I think with some of the personnel absences, both teams are missing guys, but I think more core guys are gone from New York than from New England. That said, Tomas Shankalai is injured, and we don't know for how long. He's out certainly for this game. So, but I do think that the Revs will have a lot of confidence coming off of their recent win, and the 4-2 down at Red Bull Arena, is almost a distant memory because so much has happened.
Brad, tell me from a standpoint, looking at how that season has gone, as you referenced it, play well, not get any results, whether it's a point or three. How important was the game last weekend from, I'll say, just the mental side of the game for the Revs to not just win a game, but win a game on the road? A Nashville team maybe struggling a little bit, but you take points as they come. That, to me, was a really important game for New England.
Well, I will say this. I would say that, like, the 3-0 loss to Philadelphia in the aftermath with some of the media and stuff, like, I was a little nervous that it was something of a wheels off moment where, like, the season was completely derailed. But then I went to training a couple days later, and it was such a workmanlike attitude at practice. The mentality was, there's clearly a good feeling in the group. And this is not me putting a PR spin on it, but, like, I've been around bad teams before. I've seen all the ups and downs in New England. This is my 24th season. And, Stevie Nichols last year here was not great. The first year I covered the team, 2001, the second to last for Fernando Clavillo. Those are the two seasons that I remember where it was just like, there was just not a lot of hope. These guys are still proud. They're still fighting. And there seems to be a progressive buy-in week to week into Porter's tactics, which, these patterns of play, which he does mix up and vary a little bit. And what he's doing, he's tweaking things, when he has the personnel available, right? Like when he has to play Nick Lima, as you saw at left back, that wasn't great down at Red Bull Arena. That's not his natural position, but he is arguably the fourth or fifth string left back for this Red team. So, like, when he makes a naive pass into the middle, you're like, all right, like, we'll give him a mulligan on that. And so I think all these guys know that, I can run down the excuses, and certainly, Red Bulls fans will laugh and Revs fans will say, we don't want to hear those excuses. But what I will say is that the mentality to me reflects guys who know that as recently as a year ago, this was a top of the table level team with very similar personnel, and that the pendulum has to swing at some point in terms of the variance, in terms of the breaks, whether it's penalties or the travel schedule, or just getting the bounce in the right moment, because it's just none of that has gone their way for the first third of this campaign. But the Nashville result, Matt, I really do think just made him realize, like, listen, we're better than that team at their barn, at their building. They bossed the match. Carlos Heel ran the game. He looked better than Hani Mukhtar. They were missing Henry Kessler because of yellow card accumulation and suspension. Dave Romney came in and looked like Dave Romney from a year ago. He made a mistake on the second penalty. Other than that, he didn't put a foot wrong. So I think the collective mentality has been building in a positive direction. And then to get the result, they know they got a long way to go to make up the ground, get back into the playoff places. But it's like, yeah, like they may not be able to, go to Miami and beat them if they have Messi, but we're in with a shout against most of these MLS teams, and we just gotta concentrate for 90 plus minutes, and things are going to go our way more often. That's my takeaway.
Brad, finish with this one. You talked about a New England team winning last week on the road, wins at home this year, and you said, going back a couple minutes, the series is always so home dominated. This year, for whatever the reason, New England has struggled to get any kind of points at home. Is there any explanation to that, or is it just the way that the first half of the season has gone?
Yeah, again, I could go through each result and make the individual excuses or point out the letdowns. I do still think that visiting teams don't like to come to Foxborough and play because of the playing surface. Right now, the Revs, even I think if you take out the huge crowd for Miami's visit, which was 65,000 plus, they're still averaging in the mid-high 20s. I don't know the exact figure, but they're going to have another good crowd again. Like, they're getting north of 20,000 every week when it's not messy, and so it should be Fortress Foxborough. And over the years, even going back to when it was Giant Stadium and the old Foxborough Stadium, the home team tended to win in this I-95 battle. I think it's going to be tougher, and again with the personal absences that the Red Bulls have to deal with, because I heard Morgan got called in too, right? It's not just Forsberg, Cornell, Tolkien. Do I have that right?
You do. If
that's the case, and the Revs have a good crowd, then if you're making odds, I would say home team's favored. But that's from where I sit.
Brad, appreciate you coming on, giving us a couple of minutes. Look forward to seeing you in, I don't know, 48 hours in person, being able to say hello. Thanks again for doing this.
Good, man. Happy to do it.